Altered State Adventures, The Mutiny of Baator, Part 7. Deep into the night, as a cold layer of mist formed above the haven of Qatar and slowly descended down to envelope the town with a frosty glow, Pazrael and Krumpet, following the priest's directions, traversed the wet, muddy road past the old clock tower until they reached their destination. Across from a large expanse of land, scattered with hay bales, stood a row of wooden houses that seemed different from the town centre. They were old, decrepit-looking structures that Pazrael suspected had once formed the original settlement here. And as the priest had correctly informed them, they knew exactly which one of these properties was their intended location. One house before them now let out a dull orange glow, warming to the unknowing eye, but sinister to those informed. The orange light mingled with the moisture in the air and illuminated the mist, forming a halo of light around the house, and putting the structure itself into a dark, foreboding background. Strips of light could be seen in between the cracked wooden panels and holes in the thatching.
"I guess this is it then,"
said Krumpet matter-of-factly. Pazrael nodded.
"It would appear so."
From inside the abode, a disturbance could be heard. Krumpet peeked through the window and saw a frail man, no more than a skeleton with a thin layer of flesh. He was backed into the far corner of the room, clutching a wooden plank and seemingly talking to himself.
"Yup, he looks crazy alright. He's talking to..."
Two silhouettes came into focus, their backs facing Krumpet as they slowly approached the frail man.
"Elves!"
"What? Elves?"
"I think he's being robbed or something. He looks very distressed."
Krumpet turned to see that Pazrael was already at the door. With one swift movement, the ranger kicked it through, and in one step more, his bow was drawn and aimed at the elves. The crazed man wailed at him.
"Help me! Help me! What's happening here?"
But as quickly as Pazrael had emerged, the elves had scarpered, fleeing the scene with an extremely light-footed speed. Krumpet barely even noticed them as they rushed past him and through the doorway. He spun around and swirled his axe for good measure.
"What the bloody hell, brew?"
he exclaimed. Pazrael gestured the dwarf.
"Yeah, good one, Crumbs. You nearly got them."
"Nah, never mind that, my friend,"
said the dwarf, turning his attention to the now shaking man.
"What's the deal here with this one?"
The deranged man, dirty and covered in dried blood from self-inflicted wounds, simply stared up at them with a blank expression, neither happy to be saved nor scared to be confronted once more. He sat amidst the rubble and clutter of what was once a nice and tidy living room. In the darkened corner, still clutching the wooden panel in his arms, his eyes drifted down to the empty hole in the floor where the wooden panel used to be. Pazrael tried to calm the man down.
"Are you okay? What did they want?"
But the man recoiled.
"No, leave me. Leave me alone, please."
Krumpet slowly approached to closer inspect the hole.
"What's down there?"
But before Krumpet could see, the man leapt forward and covered the hole with his entire body. Krumpet reached for the man and picked him up with ease, pinning him against the wall.
"Easy, Krumpet. Easy,"
said Pazrael as he began to inspect the flooring. The man, groaning at first, gently began to weep with submission.
"Oh, you mustn't. You can't have it. You won't."
Suddenly, the man's voice exuded power. A demonic tone flowed through his vocals and with it, a rush of adrenaline and strength.
I won't let you. I won't let you,
he said, breaking free of Krumpet's hold and shoving the dwarf backwards. He raised the wooden plank over Pazrael's head, ready to bring it down with as much force as he could muster, but Pazrael was too fast for him. The ranger parried sideways, dodging the blow by inches, and regaining his footing with a sigh already drawn in one hand.
Stop this,
he demanded. The man turned with hatred in his gaze. The orange light from the nearby candles reflected fire in his eyes, but that fire would once again be reduced to tears as another man's voice entered the room, a holy voice.
Stop this, my child. Please,
said the priest as he slowly walked between the hunters and toward the man.
You must give in to your will. Look to your soul, and you will find the Lord's answer.
The man fell to his knees, trembling, yet still poised for attack.
You are innocent, my son. Your body is being used by forces not of this world. I know you to be true. I know you to be righteous.
Now the man visibly fell apart as he dropped the wooden plank, and his body slumped into depression.
I have done terrible things, Father. All your sins can be forgiven, child. You can confess them all to me. But first, you must relinquish the tablet.
The man shuddered. A primal instinct threatened to overpower him. An addiction to the tablet, to its calling. But this time, the good within his soul prevailed, and he cowered away, retreating back into the corner of the room. Slowly, carefully, Pazrael reached into the floor cavity and collected the stone tablet half. Upon its retrieval, a strange, distant laughter could be heard.
Huh? That bloody laughter again, eh?
Yeah. It sounds familiar somehow.
The priest hurried to the frail man, offering assistance as he spoke.
The devil's work.
This part looks different,
said Pazrael, studying the tablet. Residue of dried blood stained the surface and formed clumps within the depressions. The carvings seemed to emit a faint glow.
Looks like it's been activated or something. Here, you take this one, Krumpet.
The dwarf recoiled his head in shock.
What? Why do I have to take this one, bro?
Pazrael stood holding out his arms.
Because I've got this one. It's best not to keep them both together, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but...
Just take it, Crumbs.
Yeah, okay,
said Krumpet, taking the tablet with an angry-sounding muttering under his breath.
Dan moet ek mos maar seker die fucking ding vat, nee.
Are you okay here, Father?
Said Pazrael, casting a worried eye over the man. The priest looked up. Calmness flowed through his voice.
I will be okay here. I am sorry I followed you. I had a feeling my work was not yet done with this man.
No, please don't apologize. You de-escalated this situation far better than Krumpet or I would have.
The priest smiled.
And now, you too must go. Fulfill your quest. And Godspeed to the both of you.
Pazrael nodded, turned, and followed Krumpet outside.
We could use some rest, you know, Paz.
Pazrael let out a weary sigh.
I know, but I didn't much fancy staying in that house without the fear of having our throats cut in the middle of the night.
Yeah, my bro, for sure. I'd rather sleep outside anyway.
Yeah. Well, let's put some distance between us and the town before we rest. I don't know how far a reach this tablet has.
Yeah, agreed, my bro.
During their confrontation with the crazed man, the clouds had parted and a full moon now cast its milky glow upon the land. In the distance, over the dense, dark layer of trees, a range of towering black mountains could be seen rising from the jungle.
Huh, it's a good job we have the priest's map, eh?
Said Krumpet, pointing towards the mountains.
Yeah, although I dare say we never really needed it.
Oh, why do you say that?
Pazrael shrugged as they walked off the beaten path and towards the jungle.
Well, I believe we would have seen our mutual friend again. Don't you?
You mean the smoke man? You think he knows where the entrance would be?
I have a feeling he would have known exactly where such a gate would be.
We might have to watch ourselves from now on, you know, Paz.
Pazrael laughed and slapped his friend on the back.
I've been watching out for us since day one, my friend.
Come to me, my love. Pazrael! Pazrael! Come to me, Pazrael! Pazrael! Pazrael!
Pazrael awoke, startled and clutching his bow. The dream, so fresh, so clear, remained in his mind. The image of his wife, crestfallen and reaching for him, burned behind his eyes. He sighed as he relaxed, his head hung low, for he was not a stranger to dreams, but rarely ones of this nature, rarely ones so cruel. Could it be the tablet's power was beginning to wear down Pazrael's mental armor?
Bad dream, eh?
Said Krumpet. Pazrael looked up. The fire between them had died a long time ago, and the cold dew of the morning clung to everything around them.
Yeah.
They had been traveling for days now. The pleasant fields quickly turned into jungle, then deeper still. The jungle gave them no quarter, thick with vegetation and all but uncrossable sections. They had decided instead to follow the river verge as long as they could. Their pace was slow, but gradually they progressed. Eventually they crossed the river itself, and finally they escaped the Green Hell. Before them stretched the beginnings of the Sedna mountain range, and located at its center lay the treacherous summits of the highest peaks, known collectively as the Razor's Edge. They had made camp under the shelter of a large flat stone that ruptured from the earth like a knife's edge, forming a natural lean-to. The cloudless sky was a rich, deep blue, offering the sun plenty of time to warm the air. But the path before them rapidly increased into colder climates as the altitude parted the air and ice began to form. Collecting their effects, they wasted no time in traversing their chosen path. Steep at first, but soon it veered into a steadier climb. As the hours passed and the air began to thin, the path became narrow, and now, as they turned a rock face, a deep and dangerous chasm exposed itself below.
Mighty God!
Yelled Krumpet, his voice filling the chasm. The response that he received was not expected, for it was not from Pazrael, but instead a blood-curdling cry that echoed through the mountain range. The call itself was more like a broken wolf's howl, and the reason it made Krumpet's blood boil was because he knew exactly what that cry was. He knew exactly what that cry came from, as he had heard it many times before. It had haunted his earliest memories when it had filled that old mining well.
Jeez, what the hell was that?
Questioned Pazrael. Krumpet turned just in time to see them approaching. He spoke with pure venom.
Orcs!
No sooner had Krumpet readied his axe and shield had the first javelin been launched toward them. The spear flew past Pazrael's head.
How many? How many of them?
Krumpet growled.
Enough! We must keep moving.
Pazrael and Krumpet continued on the ever-narrowing mountain ledge. Fortunately, the path slowly turned around to the left, leaving them in a blind spot. But the orcs were ruthless, fearless. They would run at full speed with complete disregard for the safety of themselves or their comrades. Bloodlust had taken over. The path began to crumble as the cold elements weakened the rocks, forcing the hunters to slow down. Another javelin flew past them and descended into the chasm below. Now, a war cry ripped through the air like thunder, the proximity alarmingly close.
Watch out!
Cried Krumpet, lifting his shield just in time. A penetrating thud followed as the javelin impacted and embedded itself into Krumpet's shield.
Derrière!
Pazrael turned and fired an arrow. The red glow lit the mountainside as it traversed down the icy path. Another one followed, and then another. The orcs still approached, pushing past the dead and wounded, sending them toppling down to the depths. Krumpet fell silent. He stood deadly still, as if in meditation, as the arrows flew over his head. Vengeance filled inside his heart, and anger pumped it through his veins. He took on an otherworldly stare, as his entire body pulsed with some higher power. His grip tightened on his axe, as once again, sparks of energy began to course through the weapon and ripple across the metal surface. Pazrael's arrows flew with impressive speed, taking out one, then another, with deadly aim, each body falling to its grave with glowing red temple wounds. But still they came. The orcs, this savage mountain tribe, covered their greyish skin with roughly cut pieces of fur and armor. Their vicious, pig-like faces, scowling with bloodthirsty tusks, eager to slay anything before them. Krumpet waited until he could see the green of their eyes, before launching himself at full speed into the approaching army. He roared with the might of the Thunder God as he pounced forward. Unleashing a whirlwind of steel, his axe soon drenched in blood. His shield no longer used for protection, but more as a weapon of force. He drove through them, sending several bodies to their doom, as Pazrael's arrows continued to fly overhead. Flashes of brilliance emitted not only from Krumpet's weapon, but from the dwarf himself, as his anger gave no mercy to the limbs and bowels of his enemies. The white, icy path now covered and tainted with something else entirely.
Krumpet! There's too many of them! We must go!
Called Pazrael. Krumpet stopped and caught his breath. His actions seemed faded, even to him. Not quite a blackout, but more a rage-induced frenzy. The orcs around him, dead or dying. The path blocked, for now. Krumpet turned to follow Pazrael further up the path, but the path itself narrowed into single-file width, and they had barely reached the next turn before the orcs had trodden over their fallen and were already on them again. Krumpet groaned.
What do we do?
Keep going! Keep going, Krumpet!
It's too bloody slow. I'm going back.
But as Krumpet turned, he promptly lost his footing as the worn rocky ledge below him gave way. Pazrael reached for him.
Fuck's sake, Krumpet, it's too dangerous!
He said, firing another arrow to buy them some time. The leading orc recoiled as the arrow penetrated its forehead. But another soon replaced him, faster, stronger.
Hurry, Krumpet! Hurry!
But the orc was close, too close. It clawed at the ledge for grip as it reached for its prey.
It's too late, Pazrael.
Going, Krumpet!
They're already on us.
Keep going, Krumpet!
You go. Go on, my boy. I'll buy you some time, eh?
Krumpet! No!
But Krumpet had already turned to face the reaching orc, and as he did so, a howling wind, distant at first, but approaching with incredible speed, swept across the chasm and collided with the mountainside. The force of the impact ruptured the loose stone and sent out a shockwave that crumbled the path below them. And in an instant, the ledge, the orcs, were no more. Pazrael and Krumpet stood in silent shock, daring not to move, as the wind disappeared as fast as it had arrived. As it parted, much the same as when it had appeared, it was accompanied by a very audible and very sinister whispering. Eventually, as calmness befell them, Pazrael and Krumpet continued their climb.
Hi, this is Pazrael. If you're enjoying this tale, why not give us a like? That would really help. And don't forget to subscribe for any upcoming chapters and stories.